To the game part of making educational games. So this is the fun part. Let's take a look at the runner game. Like every other block, it's going to come with a out of the box working example. So it says get to the end of the course while treading on as few snakes as possible. If you trot on 10, you'll have to start over. Use the space bar to jump. Okay? See up here, it has the number of snakes you've trodden upon. When you run into an object, it'll play a sound. Up there, you've got a progress bar. And when you get to the end, there's an image that is included in the config file that says you get a pizza. I speeded this up, obviously, for this video, but when we look at the config file, you'll see that the end is determined by the number of obstacles you put in the config file, which by default is 20. Then you click on the OK, and it takes you to the next block. So that's how the runner block works. Now we want to turn this into our own game, EcoQuest. So we're going to go into config, just like every other block you see, except for one, the splash screen. You're going to have an HTML file you don't need to touch, and a config file. And almost all of them will also have an images file, and a lot will have an audio file. The audio file is going to have the sounds for when we run into something, and the images file is going to have the images. So right now it's got what was shipped with it, the boy who is running, the pizza, which is the windscreen, the background, and then two obstacles, two different snakes. So I'm going to go in here. First, I'm going to change the completion URL, which is where we go next. When they finish this block, I want them to go back to the plastic menu, so that's where we're going to go. I have the stage set up to be 1000 by 576. I have the scrolling image set up. You don't need to change any of these. However, I do need to change the background. Now here's something I do often. I will have an images folder outside of the blocks. So you can see, here are the blocks, and here's my global images folder for things that I might use in multiple places in the game. So I'm going to use this background of an empty ocean floor. And then I need to replace what I had for the runner. So I'm going to replace my runner with something that's actually in the runner block. And that is this jellyfish. It could be a GIF file, it could be a PNG file. Now here I need a background image for if they lose, if they run into me things. You could just have this the same as the background image above, but I think it looks a little more professional if you have a different image if they lose, so I'm going to put a different image in here. Counter label, I want to add, there's no snakes, it's going to be bottle collisions. It's going to be bottles that they run into. Here's my instructions. Help the jellyfish avoid the bottles. Use spacebar to swim up. What do I say if they run into too many bottles? It's not snakes. So I change it to you ran into too many bottles. The exit text is what's shown if you make it to the end without hitting too many obstacles. And obviously I need to change this too because there are no snakes. Great, you made it to the end without running into too many bottles. You get a fish because I'm pretty sure jellyfish don't eat pizza. In fact, I looked it up and they do eat fish. Have this tasty fish. Again, another thing that I do is I often will have an audio that is things used many places in the game. I will just put in Splash, because I don't think jellyfish really make a sound. And then a good sound when you win the game. I already have a win game sound in the audio. You could use that, or you could use your own. And now down here, I need to put in images. This will give the width of the image, the size of it. And again, I'm going to go back to my overall images, not the one specifically in the block. And this is kind of a good way to set up your game, I think. So I have props. I have a number of bottles. Like I have this plastic bottle. I have different colors. So I'm going to use those. And now I'm ready to play. So let's see how it looks. I want to change to the blue theme. We'll talk about themes in another video. Okay, now these bottles are way too big. They're not what I want. So I did this on purpose. I swear I did. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to go back in the config file, and I might make those bottles a little bit smaller. Let's do 60 pixels. I could change the bottle size, like put in smaller bottles, but since I use these in multiple places in the game, I'd rather just resize them here instead of create another one. I'd also kind of like things to be a little bit lower down. So let's see how easy it is to revise a block to make a game better. There are a few things I would like to be better. So first of all, if you notice, there's kind of a jump when it was going along the background image. So I changed to a new background image. If you look at my old one, these two edges didn't quite match up. So I just did a little bit different one here, and when you'll see it looks a little bit smoother. So all I needed to do was go in and just change this path. And since all I changed it was from Ocean Empty Floor to Ocean Empty Floor 2, I just added a 2 there. The second thing that people often want to do is make a game easier or harder. It was a little hard to get over those bottles without running into them. So I changed the ground level from 200, which is where they're placed, to 100. And you'll see when we rerun it that the bottles are now further on the floor. They're 100 pixels up from the bottom. And so there's more space between them and my jellyfish, which is 300 pixels from the top. And it makes it easier to jump over. So by changing that ground level, you can move your obstacles up or down on the screen. And then I just thought it would look better if my jellyfish was moving. So I replaced the original jellyfish image that I had with a GIF. So there we go. Let's take a look now at the revised game. And there I applied my blue theme, so it's got a blue background, a blue button. Themes will see. Now my jellyfish is moving because I did a GIF. My bottles are on the ocean floor, not kind of floating up there, so that looks better. And also there's a little more distance between the jellyfish and the bottles, so it's easier to jump over. So if you want to make the game easier, you could put some more gap between your runner, in this case the jellyfish, and the obstacles that they're jumping over. If you want to make it harder, put those two closer together. See my progress bar progressing at the top, almost there. And you can see I only had one collision here, so this clearly is an easier game. And there's my fish. Okay, now once you've done that, remember you want to go back to your, a couple things. You want to clean up a little bit, right? I don't need this pizza. I'm not using it. Now, this won't hurt. Everything will run fine if you leave this stuff in there. But I just think it is a good idea to clean up and not have stuff in your blocks that you don't need. Here's my old jellyfish I didn't use. I might actually leave that in there. I may need it later at some point. The boy definitely don't need. So clean that up. And then make sure you go back to your menu because you want this somewhere, right? So now I'm going to go back to my plastic menu. And in the config, I had jellyfish bottles on ocean floor. So I had, and this is my image for it. I maybe want to rename this instead of just calling it runner. Again, you don't have to, but I'm just going to call it jellyfish escape. So it is now in the directory jellyfish escape. And the file's named jellyfish.html. So I click on that menu, and there it is, and it is now linked into my game.